The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. Every second felt heavier than the last. The judge, known for his strict but fair rulings, sat behind his tall wooden bench, his gavel resting within reach. His face was unreadable, eyes scanning the room filled with reporters, lawyers, and spectators. Tension filled the air, everyone waiting for the next moment in the high-stakes trial. All eyes were on the defendant, Richard Hale, a wealthy businessman accused of financial crimes. Dressed in a sharp, expensive suit, he sat calmly, his expression cold, as if the entire trial was nothing more than an inconvenience. Then, breaking through the silence like a sudden thunderclap, gasps spread through the room. Heads turned sharply. At the front row, a young girl stood trembling, fists clenched at her sides. She was no older than 10, her big brown eyes filled with fear but also determination. It was like she had been holding in these words for too long, and now, she couldn't keep them inside anymore. The shock in the courtroom was instant. The defense attorney's mouth fell open. The judge, usually so composed, shifted in his seat, his stern expression faltering for just a second. Even the reporters, who had been calmly scribbling notes, suddenly snapped to attention, pens scratching furiously. The girl took a shaky step forward, pointing directly at her father. "He's lying about everything." Her voice was louder now, stronger. Richard Hale's cold mask didn't crack, not completely, but something flashed behind his eyes. Panic. Just for a second. He leaned back in his chair, his fingers tightening around the arms of his seat. But before he could speak, the judge cleared his throat. His voice was deep, commanding. "Young lady, you need to remain silent in this courtroom." But the girl didn't back down. She looked around, her small frame shaking, but her voice refused to waver. "You don't understand? He didn't tell you everything. I know the truth, I saw it." The tension in the room thickened. Reporters whispered to one another, trying to piece together what was happening. The jury members exchanged confused glances. What could a little girl possibly know that would shake up a trial like this? Richard Hale finally reacted. He turned his head slightly, his jaw tightening. "Emma, sit down." His voice was sharp, controlled. But underneath it, there was something else. Fear. Emma ignored him. She took another step forward. "He's hiding something," she said, her voice barely above a whisper now. "And it's not just about the money." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. The judge raised his gavel, demanding silence, but it was already too late. The spark had been lit. What secret was Emma about to reveal? And why did it feel like the truth was going to be far more dangerous than anyone expected? Emma's words hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. The courtroom, once silent, was now filled with hushed whispers and exchanged glances. Everyone wanted to know, what did she mean? What secret was she talking about? Judge Thompson, his usual stern face now laced with curiosity, tapped his gavel lightly. "Order in the court," he said, though even he seemed eager to hear what would come next. He turned to the defense attorney. "Control your witness." Richard Hale's lawyer, a sharp-eyed man in a navy blue suit, quickly stood up. "Your Honor, this is highly inappropriate. She's just a child. She's emotional and confused." His voice was smooth, but there was an edge to it. He knew this was dangerous. Emma clenched her fists. "I'm not confused," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. She took a deep breath, then looked straight at the judge. "I need to tell the truth." Richard Hale shifted in his seat. His usual confidence was cracking. He leaned forward, his voice tight. "Emma, sit down." But she didn't move. "No, Dad," she said. "Not this time." The room held its breath. The prosecutor, sensing something huge, adjusted his glasses and stepped closer. "Emma," he said gently, "what do you know?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them away. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to stay strong. "I saw what he did," she whispered. Richard's face paled. "Enough." His voice was sharp now, a warning. Emma looked at him, her own father, the man she once trusted. But she couldn't keep quiet anymore. She turned back to the judge. "I know where he hid the papers." The ones you've been looking for. Gasps filled the room. The judge's eyes narrowed. What papers? Emma took a deep breath, steadying herself. The ones that prove everything. The money, the lies, all of it. The defense attorney's face lost all color. Your Honor, this is outrageous. She's just a child. She has no idea what she's saying. But the damage was done. The jury, the reporters, even the judge, they were all locked in. This trial had just taken a turn no one saw coming. And Richard Hale? For the first time, he looked truly afraid. The courtroom was frozen in shock. Every eye was on Emma as her words echoed through the room. Her father, Richard Hale, sat stiffly, his hands clenched into fists. The confident businessman who once controlled every situation now looked rattled. The judge, trying to maintain control, cleared his throat. Miss Hale, I need you to explain yourself. Emma swallowed hard. She knew this was a dangerous moment, but there was no turning back now. I found the documents, she said. The ones that prove everything. A ripple of whispers spread across the courtroom. The prosecutor's ears perked up. Where did you find them? He asked, stepping closer. Richard's lawyer shot up from his chair. Objection! She's a child. This is just a distraction. His voice was louder than before, almost desperate. Judge Marshall, an older, no-nonsense man, raised a hand. Overruled. Let her speak. Richard turned toward Emma, his eyes burning with warning. Emma, stop this now. She met his gaze, but this time she wasn't afraid. I saw where you hid them, Dad. I know the truth. A heavy silence fell over the room. The prosecutor pressed forward. Emma, tell us where the documents are. Emma's hands shook slightly, but she lifted her chin. Inside the old piano, she said, her voice steady. The one in the study. Gasps erupted from the jury. Reporters scribbled frantically in their notebooks. Richard shot to his feet. This is ridiculous. He barked. She's making this up. Judge Marshall's gavel slammed down. Enough. He turned to the prosecutor. Is there reason to believe these documents exist? The prosecutor nodded. Your Honor, if what she's saying is true, this changes everything. The judge's eyes locked onto Richard. Then I suggest we find out. Richard's face went pale. His carefully built world was crumbling right in front of him. And the worst part? There was nothing he could do to stop it. Emma's heart pounded as the courtroom doors burst open. A police officer stepped inside, holding a sealed envelope. The entire room turned to watch. The officer walked straight to the judge and handed it over. Your Honor, we searched the defendant's home. We found this inside an old piano, just like the witness described. The judge carefully opened the envelope, pulling out a stack of papers. His eyes scanned the documents, and his expression darkened. These are official financial records. He looked up sharply at Richard Hale. And they prove fraud. Gasps filled the courtroom. The prosecutor snatched the papers, quickly flipping through them. His lips curled into a smirk. Well, well. Looks like we have everything we need. Richard shot up from his seat. This is a setup. That evidence could be fake. His voice wavered, his confidence crumbling. The judge ignored him and turned back to the officer. Were these records confirmed as originals? The officer nodded. Yes, Your Honor. They matched the bank's files exactly. Emma's fingers clenched into fists. She had done it. The truth was finally out. The judge tapped his gavel. Mr. Hale, do you have anything else to say before I make my ruling? Richard's face turned red. He opened his mouth, then shut it again. He was trapped, and he knew it. The prosecutor leaned forward. Your Honor, given this new evidence, we request immediate action. The judge nodded firmly. I agree. Court is adjourned. As Richard was led away in handcuffs, Emma let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. For the first time in her life, she felt free. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Emma watched as her father, Richard Hale, sat frozen in his seat. The weight of his crimes had finally caught up to him. But just as the officers moved to take him away, another voice cut through the tense air. "Wait!" Emma spun around. Her mother, Olivia, stood trembling, her face pale as a sheet. Her hands clutched her coat as if holding herself together. The judge narrowed his eyes. "Mrs. Hale, do you wish to say something?" She took a shaky breath. "There's more, much more." A murmur spread through the crowd. The prosecutor turned to her, his interest piqued. "Go on." Olivia squeezed her eyes shut for a second, then met Emma's gaze. "I was part of it," she admitted. "Not at first, but I knew. And I didn't stop it." Emma's stomach dropped. "Mom," tears streamed down Olivia's face. "I tried to protect you, Emma. I wanted to get out, but she choked on her words, her voice breaking. Richard's face twisted with fury. "Olivia, shut your mouth." The judge slammed his gavel. "Mr. Hale, you will remain silent." Olivia wiped her tears. "I have proof." She reached into her purse, pulling out a flash drive. "Everything's on here. The meetings, the deals, the threats." The prosecutor stepped forward, taking it carefully. "We'll see about that." Emma's world spun. She had exposed her father, but now her mother was tangled in this mess too. Was anything about her family real? The judge sighed heavily. "Mrs. Hale, your involvement will be investigated. This court will not allow any part of this crime to be overlooked." Emma clenched her fists, her heart pounding. The truth had come out, but at what cost? Emma stood frozen as the courtroom erupted in whispers. The weight of her mother's confession still hung in the air. She had braced herself for the truth about her father, but this was something she never saw coming. The prosecutor studied Olivia, then turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I request a recess to review this new evidence." The judge nodded. "Granted. Court will reconvene in 1 hour." Emma barely noticed as people began filing out of the room. Her heart pounded as she turned to Olivia. "Mom, you knew?" Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. "I wanted to tell you, Emma. I swear. But I was terrified. Your father, he wouldn't have let me walk away." Emma swallowed hard. The father she thought she knew was already a stranger. But now her mother too? She glanced at the prosecutor, who was already plugging the flash drive into his laptop. A deep frown crossed his face as he scrolled through files. "There's enough here to bury Richard Hale for good," he murmured. Then, after a pause, "and possibly Olivia Hale too." Emma's breath caught. "Wait, no." She came forward. "That has to count for something." The prosecutor sighed. "The court will decide that." Before Emma could respond, the heavy courtroom doors swung open. 2 uniformed officers approached Olivia. "Mrs. Hale, we need you to come with us." Emma's world tilted. "No." "She's not like him." Olivia held up a shaking hand. "It's okay, sweetheart." She turned to the officers, her chin trembling but held high. "I'll cooperate." Emma could only watch as her mother was led away, the past crashing down on them both. The truth was out, but would justice be fair? The courtroom fell silent as the prosecutor stood, his expression unreadable. He turned to the judge. "Your Honor, given this new evidence, we need to reassess the charges against Richard Hale." Emma clenched her fists. Her father had lied, manipulated, and destroyed lives. Now, he was finally about to face the consequences. The judge nodded. "Proceed." "Mr. Hale, the evidence presented today proves your direct involvement in multiple crimes. Do you have anything to say?" Richard scoffed, but his voice wavered. "This is ridiculous. That evidence is fabricated." The prosecutor remained calm. "We have video footage, financial records, and now a confession from Olivia Hale." Richard's smirk vanished. He shot a glare at Olivia, who sat quietly, her hands trembling in her lap. Emma felt her stomach twist. This was her father, once powerful, now exposed. She turned to Olivia. "Mom, did you know everything?" Olivia hesitated, then whispered, "Not everything. But enough." The judge tapped his gavel. "In light of this evidence, I am revoking bail. Richard Hale, You will remain in custody until sentencing. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Richard's lawyer protested, but the judge silenced him with a glare. This court does not tolerate corruption and deceit. As officers approached Richard, Emma saw fear flash across his face for the first time. She exhaled, a weight lifting from her chest. Justice was finally catching up. But as her mother looked down, guilt shadowing her eyes, Emma realized this fight wasn't over yet. The cold metal handcuffs snapped around Richard Hale's wrists. The officers tightened their grip as they led him out of the courtroom. His once confident smirk was gone, replaced with a look of pure shock. Emma watched in silence. She had dreamed of this moment, seeing her father face justice. But now that it was happening, she felt empty. Olivia, her mother, sat beside her, staring at the floor. Emma turned to her. "Mum, what happens now?" Olivia hesitated, then sighed. "We move on. We rebuild." Emma's chest tightened. "Move on? After everything? Is that even possible?" she whispered. Before Olivia could answer, the courtroom doors burst open. A tall man in a sharp suit walked in, holding a thick folder. The prosecutor's eyes widened. "Mr. Dawson? What is the meaning of this?" The man, Dawson, cleared his throat. "New evidence. And it changes everything." A hush fell over the room. Richard, still in cuffs, straightened. "This is a joke." Dawson ignored him and handed the folder to the judge. "Your Honor, these documents reveal offshore accounts, hidden transactions, and accomplices." Richard Hale wasn't working alone. Emma's heart pounded. "Wait, there's more?" The judge flipped through the papers, his expression darkening. This case just took a new turn. Richard's face twisted in anger. "You can't do this." But deep down, he knew this was just the beginning.